Okay, this is the intro to the Sabbath service for the 21st day of September 2019. We'll give the Hebrew date when we're live. This will be streaming live on the Sabbath service page of Facebook Live, and this recording will go into the archive. We'll begin just as soon as we get a green light from Facebook Live. Well, Shabbat Shalom, happy Sabbath, good morning everyone. Welcome to the Sabbath service, AM to the U.S., PM to the U.K. Now I say PM to the U.K. for this same service that's AM to the U.S. because on the clock, they're actually ahead of us in time. So it's already been morning over in the U.K., and it's now afternoon, 2:30 in the afternoon when it's 9:30 here. And yes, I know it's a few minutes past 9:30 this morning. I did try to get us on closer to on time. And in fact, I'm coming on even before I have everything really ready to go this morning, just because I'm trying to follow the example Mr. Armstrong set and get to where we get us on our scheduled time every morning, every Sabbath. Mr. Armstrong set an outstanding example in that. But we still have some loose ends to tie up here that are going to help tighten us up. And Jameson Woody is here from New Jersey. I'm very thankful he's here. Some of you who were with us for the Bible study last night heard Woody read that long booklet. He got it all in 90 minutes. The booklet Mr. Armstrong wrote in 1972 entitled The Book of Revelation Unveiled at Last. Now I should rephrase that. He actually wrote it sometime before 1972, but an updated latest publication version of it was in 1972, was the version Woody read to you from. Entire book last night. And I was happy to see some of the comments that were very good, that appreciated Woody's doing that. I appreciated it too, because even though Woody wanted me to share some of the reading with him on it, I was exhausted, and he got close to the end, and I asked him, just carry on if you would. Woody, you're doing great. And he did do a good job. And I think I spoke to him a little bit this morning. He understands that, reading aloud through a book that's that big and getting it in 90 minutes as he did, it takes a lot of effort and a push. And he pushed through it. And we had been working earlier in the day, preparing for the Sabbath, working to get things cleaned up here for the Sabbath, and we're doing a tremendous amount of remodeling to the place to get more square footage counted, to have the carport area counted for my reverse mortgage inspection, and one of you wrote me, I appreciated that, and say, well, why not just skip the mortgage? Just ask the brethren to send in money. I've tried to avoid doing that except on holy days. It's something we've wanted to do, a giving thing here, and I got in trouble with the roofing above us, and I had to take out a bunch of loans at 36 and some at 39% interest. And then I had to borrow more money to pay the payments on those payments, and now I've I'm at a point where I got to close this reverse mortgage and pay off all those things. And then I intend to keep it a policy. I like what the Apostle Paul largely did. And Mr. Armstrong set the same example. Now, if you came into the church, of course, the ministry in your local area would tell you, as a church member, you tithe to headquarters. We don't have a headquarters anymore. We have a church that is scattered. And I know many of you, some of you are out there supporting those scattered churches who listen here. And I'm just going to ask you to do this. Mr. Armstrong wrote a booklet entitled Ending Your Financial Worries. I think some of you need to read that for a couple of reasons. One, because your own financial situation, and two, it tells you in there how to determine where your tithe and offering money should go. And I'm just going to leave it at encouraging you to read that book. All right, now, this morning, in an effort to be as close to sign on time as I could, I just went ahead and hit the button as soon as I had everything up and able to run here. I loaded up a couple of Mr. Armstrong's telecast, and let's see, where are we in time? We're September 21 on the pagan Roman calendar. It is the 21st day of the 6th month on God's holy sacred calendar. Well, that means when you know how many days are in the 6th month, now normally on God's calendar, the odd-numbered days, the odd-numbered months, for example, the first month, the third month, the fifth month, the seventh month, the ninth month, the 11th month, and when there's an extended year, a pregnant year, would be equivalent in thinking in a way to a leap year, but they're not leap years on God's sacred calendar. They're either called extended years or, as a lot of the Jewish people call them, pregnant years. We had a 13th, a whole extra month in an extended year and make it there's a 13th month. As it has the same name as the 12th month, except you call it Adar 2 instead of just Adar. And I was born in Adar 2, and that makes me only have a birthday every 7 out of 19 years. Out of each 19-year time cycle, I only have a birthday come up in 7 of those 19 years. So if I add that up, I'm only, 25, 26 years old? I've only had 26 birthdays, let me put it that way. All right, I kind of like that. But, I don't even have the same date on the Adar month, because when you have an extended year, when you put the extra month on there, it becomes a 30-day month instead of a 29-day month. And I was born on that 30th day of Adar 2. And then when you don't have an extended year, there's not an Adar 30. So anyway, it's kind of like February 29 on the leap year calendar. All right, I kind of like that. But as some of you know, I would qualify for a reverse mortgage. So my age is up there. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm happy with it. Mr. Armstrong lived to be 93. He was in his 94th year when he died in 1986. And he died before his 94th birthday in that year, so he was just 93, but it was his 94th year. We're going to hear from him in a couple of telecasts I have, but I do want to, first of all, share with you a few things. We are going to sing a hymn, and let's do a hymn in a moment. Let me just tell you where we'll go after that before we hear Mr. Armstrong. I just did potluck, and I'm not sure exactly what I pulled up, but it's some that I edited that I think I haven't shown you yet, or haven't shown you for quite a while. But I have 2 emails that I want to cover. One is Tom Williams' email, which he does each week to the Internet Ambassador Spokesman's Club, where he does the topic session, and I want to share that with you. Because I want us to have something live and fresh, and Tom is always thinking. Tom worked at headquarters in letter answering for the Spanish department, and of course that many also had to work under the English-speaking letter answering department under Richard Rice, who, if they didn't have and already have an answer to a question that came in, they would run it by Mr. Armstrong first. And, excuse me, then Mr. Armstrong would tell them what the 1 Corinthians 1:10 answer should be, so that we were all speaking the same thing. And if it was something, if somebody came up with a question that Mr. Armstrong hadn't had before or thought of before, he would take it to God in prayer. And if it was a real lulu of a question, he would often take it to God with prayer and fasting. And Tom worked in that department where he was constantly answering questions from both brethren and non-brethren, just, listeners to the broadcast. And some people came up with some questions would be the standard all the time type questions you get. We already had pre-printed answers for that. They just put their name on it, date it, and send it out. Some questions were like, boy, scratch your head and got to run it up to Mr. Armstrong. And Tom had 25 years of that. And so with that kind of experience, when Tom does topics, I think it's worth sharing with you. Some of you have told me that you appreciate that. So we're going to do that after we sing a hymn. And I have an email here. Walter, I haven't read it yet. I'm going to read it. I'm forced. It came in this morning. I'm forced to read it while I'm live here. So I'll try to eyeball it before I read it. But Walter's cool and wonderful guy. He has never had a problem with my reading his emails live. I'd never do that to any of you unless I had a communicating relationship like Walter and I do, and we're cool together on things. So I feel like I'll eyeball it ahead and see if there's anything that should stay confidential in it, Walter. But I'm gonna. If you're listening right now live and you say, "No, Steve, don't read that one," just send me another email real quick and tell me. But otherwise, Walter is coming down to see James and Woody's baptism, which will be 2 days before the evening of the Feast of Tabernacles, before that starts. And I left my calendar downstairs. But I think I can remember the dates. It seems to me that the evening of the 13th of October and then the full day of October 14 is the first day of Tabernacles. See, October 9 is the Day of Atonement preceding that, and in between Atonement and first day of Tabernacles, so that it comes up 2 days before the evening that the Feast of Tabernacles starts. I think that'll be October 11. Yeah, because if the evening the feast starts is October 13, then the day before is October 12. Day before that's October 11. October 11, we've got scheduled for James and Woody's baptism here in Alabama. There are a couple of people. Woody's very happy, and I am too. They're coming down to see Woody's baptism. At least a couple people, and there are others telling me that if they can get away from work at that time and drive on up, they will. And some of those who drive up for his baptism will be staying over for a very small, intimate Feast of Tabernacles that I'll be doing here in the new area downstairs that we're converting to a studio, so I can move this upstairs studio downstairs. We're to a larger area. We're converting the 2 carport, big area, that we're enclosing to be able to count that square footage as living space for my mortgage appraisal. We're converting that into a studio. It'll have a space for chairs, where right here I've got a camera in front of me, no room for anybody. Well, you could sit over here in a tight spot. Woody sometimes sits over here in a tight spot with me. But we don't have room for anybody else really unless you're standing. And downstairs we will have room. Maybe we could put in a couple of dozen seats. And so if some of you are wanting to go somewhere and you don't know where you're going yet, which used to happen to me, God would never answer my prayer until a few days before the feast. Okay, be here, or this or that. Then I can say, okay, boom, I'm going. I'm talking about during these days of apostasy and scattering is the way God has worked that for me. And if you don't know where you're going yet, you say, well, yeah, I would like to come, and especially if y'all going to hold a meeting. Now, I'm going to cater to the live stream audience because we have people who are not able to travel. Elderly people with certain handicaps, certain old age handicaps that God, sometimes decides, I'm going to leave you with that. You're older, whatever. Although we should remember Moses, and we can always ask, well, God, you kept Moses youthful and strong till old age. Help my unbelief and do that for me. And just ask him. And if, it's up to God. He can say yes, he can say no. But if you don't ask him, he's not even considering it for you. So that's just a suggestion to you. And, Mr. Armstrong used to tell people that regarding your health and your belief for health care, he said, if you're putting your trust in a doctor, you better do everything that doctor tells you to do. He says, on the other hand now, if you're putting your trust in God, then you put your trust in God, and you do it that way. But even that man that went to Jesus Christ and asked Christ to heal his son, I think I've read that to you before here, it's in the Gospels. After Christ said to him, according to your faith, your son will be healed. And the father quickly realized, wait a minute, as soon as Christ is out of my sight, my faith may drop, just like the Apostle Peter fell into sank down into the water after he saw Christ walking on the water, and he said, hey, I'd like to do that. Christ said, come on. Peter jumps out of the boat, walks on the water toward Christ, then stops and looks around like, hey, wait a minute, I can't be doing this, and down he goes. See, even with Christ standing there in front of him, he doubted. Christ pulled him up and said, oh, ye of little faith, you of little faith, with just the faith the size of a grain of mustard seed. Christ said, you can move mountains. Now, you're not going to have the faith to move a mountain if you realize God doesn't want you running around moving this mountain and that mountain just to show off or to disrupt a city. Or, if you can find a mountain out in the desert somewhere and you want to practice your faith, maybe God will let you move that one. But anyway, Peter sank when his faith doubted, and the father realized that as soon as he was away from Christ, if you're only going to heal my son according to my faith in this, my faith may, like I just said, may drop just like Peter sank down into the water after he thought about it and thought, what am I doing walking here? This is not natural. This is not normal. And his belief in the Christ's ability to do miracles just disappeared. He sank. Well, the father realized, he had enough smarts to realize that might happen to him. And he asked, he said, well, if you're going to do it that way, help my unbelief. And Christ did go over and above. He not only healed the man's son, but he gave the faith that he was requiring to heal his son. When the father said, help my unbelief, God helped that man's unbelief by giving him that faith because he was smart enough to ask for it. We have not because we ask not. So let's be smart, brethren. Let's start asking and ask God for help. I asked God for help, and God sent James and Woody down here with a lot of eagerness. Now, once Woody got here and he saw how much there was to do, it's kind of like he has to continually ask God for more strength and dedication to stay with it. But we are making headway, good headway. I'm very encouraged. I think Woody is too, and we're enjoying the company together and growing and looking forward to October 11, Woody's baptism date. Now, Woody it's his last name, but he also goes by that as a nickname, and he's full of life. If you saw him or if you heard him in the Bible study last night, you know that Jameson Woody is a man God has called who is full of energy, life, zeal, and He loves God's Word. He loves the truth that God has given to us on a silver platter through this man who he called and took away his business, beat him down, and nearly took away his marriage over the Sabbath. And he tried. As his wife said, you show me from the Bible that we don't have to keep the Sabbath on Saturday, and okay, I'll go along with this. Well, he spent 6 months trying to find something in the Bible to disprove keeping the Sabbath on Saturday. And at the end of that 6 months, when he thought he had found a gem, when he read something that a dissident Seventh-day Adventist had written up, referring to Colossians 2, verses 14 through 16, he said, honey, here it is. And his wife could see that didn't really knock it in the bud. She knew there was a word in there that if Mr. Armstrong would go, if her husband, Herbert Armstrong, would go look up that word in the original language, in the original Greek language, that Christ used, Greek or Aramaic, that he would see that God was not doing away with the Sabbath with that verse. She stayed up all night praying, and that answer from God came to her in the morning after her being up all night praying. Of course, Mr. Armstrong, knowing when his wife didn't come to bed with him that something was up, and so in the morning she told him what God had told her to ask her husband to do. And so he went to the library one more time after doing that every day for 6 months. And he spent the day there, and he looked up that word in the original language, came back home and said, well, honey, I found out just as you thought. That's right, but I found out more than that. We not only should be keeping, that verse not only establishes that we should be keeping the weekly Sabbath, but we should also be keeping the annual Sabbaths. Many of you longtime brethren, you've heard Mr. Armstrong tell you that story himself. It's in his autobiography. It's in many of his radio broadcasts. He's mentioned it on his telecast. He's mentioned it in Bible studies. He's mentioned it in sermons, because that was a big deal to him. He was about to lose his marriage with a wife he loved dearly. He was about to lose that marriage over the question of the Sabbath, and on what day the Sabbath was established to be kept without change from God. It's still the seventh day of the week. And that's why we're here this morning in the early AM to the U.S., and we're on this early in the U.S. because this makes this live stream run at 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon in the U.K. Brethren in the U.K. asked me, Stephen, please get your live stream on before the sun goes down on the Sabbath so we can tune in here. We want to stay with you because you haven't established a group, a blankety-blank banana peeling Church of God group, which we realize is a cause of division among the one body of Christ, the one true Church of God. You know, the body of Christ is also known as the Church of God. You were baptized into the Church of God, and as Mr. Armstrong told us when he asked us to not go around telling people that we were members of either the Armstrong movement or the initial name of the corporation for the church that held the assets, the Radio Church of God, or the later name change to Worldwide Church of God. He told us on at least 2 occasions, explicitly, when it was named Radio, he said, don't call yourself members of the Radio Church of God or the Armstrong movement. Then when the name was changed, he said that in 1956, and then in the early 80s, after the name had been changed in 68, 69, had been changed to Worldwide Church of God. He told us in 1980s, brethren, same principle, same thing I taught you back in 1956. Don't be telling people you're members of the Worldwide Church of God. You were not baptized into any organization of men, and Worldwide Church of God represents the corporate structure of of the Church of God. Now, we came up with a distinguishing name, and sometimes, yes, people use it generically, but in strict literal terms. As Mr. Armstrong explained it that way. He asked everybody who's members of the Worldwide Church of God to raise their hands in the auditorium one Sabbath. I was there when he did it. And he looked around and he said, oh, if you're members of the Worldwide Church of God, get your hands up high. Not just get them up high where I can see them. And so he's looking around, about half, maybe more, maybe a little less, somewhere around half the people had their hands up. And others did not. But Mr. Armstrong is looking to see if any of the ones with their hands up were on the board of directors. Well, they were all assigned to be speaking in local areas, so none of them were there. And so he said, look, everybody who's got your hand up, put your hand down. Put your hands down. None of you are members of the Worldwide Church of God. And he proceeded to explain. The Worldwide Church of God is a non-member corporation. He said in its articles, in its bylaws, it expressly says we are a non-member corporation. Now, the exception to that would be the board of directors, which under California state law, it was required to have a board of directors. So those 12 board of directors, they were members of the non-member corporation. They had to be. And the president was a member. But otherwise, he said, and there were none of the board of directors in the audience. So he said, everybody, put your hands down. None of you are members of the Worldwide Church of God. Now, some of you out there right now are resisting what Mr. Armstrong told us, that I'm repeating. I'm just reiterating it to you. You are resisting that. Why? Because you love to fellowship in these groups that ministers have created, and they've come up with a different adjective. Well, worldwide's gone now. Mr. Armstrong died, and the apostasy changed the name, and they tried to turn the truth into a lie. They did away with, in that organization, with our continuing to keep the Sabbath on Saturday, on the seventh day of the week, as God had established it and continues it. And they tried to do away with many other of the truths that were restored to God's end-time church. And they took the name Church of God out of their corporate name. And that's appropriate because they've taken the truth out of their organization. They've tried to turn truth into a fable, into a lie. And they ran everybody off. Now, there are a few diehards out in West Valley and in Glendora who continue to meet in those local congregations. And Junior, the new PG, the new pastor general, not apostle, but just pastor general of that new organization, that now apostate organization, he allows the West Valley Church to continue to use as a local church name, the Worldwide Church of God. So there's still a congregation under Joe Jr. that carries on, and he allows them to assemble on the Sabbath. Now there's some, like in Tuscaloosa here in Alabama, he told that group to close its doors. If those people won't come on Sunday, then just close it up. No more Tuscaloosa congregation, because local brethren wouldn't keep Sunday. And so he said, okay, we're not going to provide a service for them on the Sabbath anymore. That was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. That happened about, roughly 10, 12 years ago. I happened to have been attending Tuscaloosa every Sabbath for about 6 weeks at that time, because where I had been going 1 week to Tuscaloosa, 1 week to Birmingham, the Birmingham pastor, still under Joe Jr., one Sabbath he told me, this is your last warning. After I had the Sabbath before, while he was away, I had asked one of his associates to see if we couldn't hold the annual Day of Atonement meeting in a building that the congregation owned up in Good Hope, Alabama. We actually, the congregation actually owned the property and the building. And so I said, look, all it would, it wouldn't cost that much to just open the doors, turn on the lights, and the offering that people would be giving that day would more than pay for the electricity and put some money in the coffers, in the church coffers, the collection plate. And the local pastor, the associate pastor told me, Stephen, I've already asked him about that. I told him I would even conduct the service up there myself. I asked him, could we do it in that building up there? Because we were renting this other building, and it would have, Day of Atonement would have occurred on a day that would have conflicted with that other place we were renting this time. We would have had to have driven about 50 miles from Birmingham to the Good Hope congregation building. But we own that building. Wouldn't have to ask anybody for permission to use it or pay any rent to use it. The Birmingham church owned that church building in Good Hope. But the local pastor in Birmingham, the overall pastor, had already told that associate pastor, no, we're not going to do the holy days anymore. And no, you can't use that building for that day. But what that associate pastor did for me was, he said, Stephen, I'll call all around. And he did. He called congregations in the rest of the state of Alabama. He called them in all the surrounding states around Alabama, starting with Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi. He called pastors in all those states. I think he even called to Kentucky. And he said, Stephen, not any of them are conducting a service on the Day of Atonement. Boy, was that sad to hear. Because here, some of us believed we should stay and not jump ship prematurely until God showed us he was moving the baton here or there elsewhere, which he never has done. We're still scattered. And that's the condition the church is in. We are scattered. But some ministers, they decided, hey, this is a chance to do what Mr. Armstrong said they would do. They would try to corral and flock up as many people under them as they could. So they went out and they started these banana-peeling, vanity plate Church of God groups. I know some of you don't like to hear me say that. But, brethren, I cannot compromise on God's truth. Mr. Armstrong taught us I cannot ignore it and leave you that tune in here blind to it. If you tune in here, you are going to know the truth, like it or not. And if it causes you to tune away, then you don't have the spirit you should have to qualify, as Christ tells us. Let me see, can I pull up this scripture? To qualify for the first resurrection. I'm going to show you something if you're willing to stay here and listen. You look at this verse that we often cite for the newscast we do Sunday through Thursday evening, 5 nights a week, giving you, under the license we have with the BBC, we show the video news clips that relate most to the 4 active seals from the book of Revelation. And Woody, thank you again for being willing to read exhaustively as you did and keep the energy and drive. There was a point last night where Woody turned to me and said, Steve, I'm getting faint. Woody, there's not that much to go. I think it'd be best if you continue it. Just keep going. And he did. We took just a brief pause. He got some water, got some apple cider, and Woody kept going. Thank you very much for that, Woody. I believe from the comments I've been seeing, the brethren who tuned in last night appreciated that too. And if you missed that Bible study last night, brethren, it's in our archive. If you go to cogtv.org, over there on that side of the lower third, you see cogtv.org. That's our website. If you go there and then look on the menu on the right-hand side, you'll see an area that says, a little tab that says Archive Video. And if you click on that, over on the left side, you'll see a big purple tab, the same purple as this lower third. And it says latest Sabbath service video. And then right now that tab is last night's Bible study. Now after this service this morning, that tab will become an archive recording of this live stream this morning from Sabbath morning, excuse me. And once that tab becomes this service, if you want to see last night's Bible study, just look under the tab. There's an index listing. It's chronological with the last date first. And then if you look for last night's date, which would be September 20, and it'll say BS for Bible study, or otherwise it'll say SS for Sabbath service, and it'll make a reference to reading of the booklet Revelation Unveiled. I think we just used a short title for it. Maybe I said the whole thing, I'm not sure. Revelation Unveiled at Last. But you'll see that in the index, so you can click on that. It'll take you to an archive recording in YouTube. We also have one on Vimeo if for some reason you don't get YouTube coming in very well, but most people, YouTube does real fine. And so we archive them on YouTube. You can click that, watch last night's Bible study, Woody reading the booklet, the book of Revelation Unveiled at Last, from beginning to end, straight through. No commentary, just straight through the book. And well, that's one reason I like, and I hope you brethren appreciate the way Woody can read it, straight read, with enthusiasm and emphasis here and there. And he doesn't stop and ad-lib like yours truly would be very likely to do. He just reads the booklet straight through. Then I can come back and add commentary, later and draw on it, but he gets the job done, and he got it done within the Bible study time last night. And that's in our index for last night's Bible study. If you, as I was saying, if you didn't see the Bible study last night, I encourage you to do that. Mr. Armstrong, on many of the broadcasts he does, the telecast, he holds up that booklet from the book of Revelation Unveiled at Last and encourages you to read that, saying you're going to get much more detail from that booklet than you get from the telecast he's giving. And so if you'd like to have it read for you, if you got the book and want to read it yourself, do it. Be sure you're familiar with what's in that booklet, because it relates to what's happening right now and what Jesus Christ is telling us to do here in this verse. He's telling us to watch the four active seals. Now, it starts with watch, but in the same chapter, Luke 21, Christ has just been explaining, as Woody read to you in the booklet last night, as Mr. Armstrong said in his booklet, Revelation Unveiled at Last, Jesus Christ explained in plain language in Matthew 24, Luke 21, this chapter, and in Mark 13. He explained in plain language the seals from the book of Revelation. And so he's just been explaining those, and he's saying, at the point between the first four seals and the fifth seal, he's saying, watch. Now he says, therefore, because when he explained the fifth seal, Great Tribulation, in the preceding verse, let's go back one, we'll go to verse 35, he just said that the Great Tribulation that he had just explained comes as a snare shall it come on the whole world, on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. A kind of archaic but beautifully poetic Old King James language version of saying tout le monde, as the French would say, everybody in the world. That tribulation comes unexpectedly, like a thief in the night, like a snare, like a little mouse, like a mousetrap catching a mouse. But this is like a big bear trap catching humans. It comes like a snare. The whole world doesn't expect this great tribulation, which Christ described in Matthew 24:21 as, are you listening, brethren? Mr. Armstrong would often say to you, brethren, wake up! 90% of you aren't getting it. Sometimes he would only say, half of you aren't getting it. But then, after saying half of you for quite a while, and he realized you guys aren't waking up, and it's more than half. He upped the ante to, brother, about 90% of you aren't getting it. And what he wanted us to get, one of the things he wanted to get, is that this thing that comes as a snare on the whole world is coming. And some of you brethren aren't getting that fact. As Mr. Armstrong said, get ready to reduce your standard of living, because just before this great tribulation comes, our money's going to drop, boom down, not boom up, but drop down. Be prepared to reduce your standard of living. Now, that's one thing I've been trying to do here. And I've been planting fruit trees in case, if food is not readily available in the stores. I got some growing on fruit trees back here, and things like that. And my neighbor's got chickens. I'm planning on getting chickens here too. I got enough land. I got residential land. I got acreage. Other than the acre the house is on. I gave the rest of the acreage over. I signed it to the church for church use. And I had a tax exemption on the whole land because in Alabama, when you're senior age and you file a homestead, you don't pay any real estate tax. It's a great place to own land. But when I subdivided the land off and because I'm putting a reverse mortgage on my house, I didn't want that reverse mortgage to apply to the rest of the land that I would set up some things for church use on. And the county, for the state, the county I'm in is putting some pressure on me to do what I want to do quickly. The land I assigned to the church, it said, if you want a tax exemption on that land, you're going back to paying taxes now on that land until you put a meeting hall on there. They're requiring me to put a meeting hall on there. So we're going to start out for this feast with a meeting in the studio that James and Woody is helping me convert to, a place where you can meet, up to a couple dozen people. We may have far less than that, and that's okay. If some of you all of a sudden just show up here, great. You'll be welcome. There are all kind of local hotels in the area. I got acres of land that's church assigned. If you want to rent one of those portable buildings that you can get for less than a week of hotel room, you could have them haul one of those. Woody and I looked at some of those the other day. They're kind of nice. They're comfortable. They're good size. You have to get put a bed in there. I bought a couple of new roller beds we got here. But rent you one of those and put it down toward the woods, down where the creek is down there. It'd be beautiful sleeping, beautiful scenery around you. Walk out and you're in the woods and a stream flowing beside you. There are parts of that stream where you could fish, or you could just walk. It's down in a valley, and what's called an Indian valley, where the Indians actually dug caves into the rocks along that Indian Valley way, and it's down with trees, down in a valley with the creek and the trees providing shading. It's just beautiful atmosphere down there. Places you can go sit and meditate, pray. You want to do like Mr. Armstrong used to do, go pray kneeling on a rock. There are lots of big boulder-like rocks there you can go kneel on and pray. Great place for a feast. And you're welcome. You either get a hotel room nearby or you rent you a portable building and roll it on our land over here for less than a hotel room. And that includes the bringing it over and taking it back. So that's a consideration for you. We'd love to have you. We've got Jeannie coming down from Pennsylvania. We've got Walter, whose email I'm going to look at in a minute, coming down from Canada. And they're going to be here coming in a day before Atonement so that they'll be here for Woody's baptism between Atonement and Tabernacles. There's a reason we're doing it on that day, on October 11. I'll tell you about it another time. I've already told some of you about that. I've already mentioned it here, so if you heard that already, you know. And if some of you are in need or desire to be baptized, you'd like to get baptized when Woody gets baptized. Carlton Smith out of Santa Barbara, California, before he died, he said, Stephen, I called Mr. Smith and I was asking him for some advice and tips on baptism. And I said, I hear you've done a lot of baptisms. I said, I've heard that you did more baptisms than the man who went around and did the talks where he'd sometimes speak for hours and hours and hours and hours. Waterhouse, Mr. Gerald Waterhouse. I said, I heard you've done more baptisms than Mr. Waterhouse, who used to do the road trips and specialize in doing, road trip baptisms. He did that in the Birmingham area. He set up the local congregations here by doing big baptism tours and creating a lot of brethren through the baptisms, and they had to have a congregation, and so then a local minister would be sent out to establish a local congregations. And Mr. Waterhouse was one of the early ones doing that. Well, so was Carlton Smith. And the Carlton Smith confirmed it for me. He said, "Yeah, Stephen, what you heard is true. I've done more baptisms than Gerald Waterhouse." And he said, sometimes, he said, a lot of times what I'd do is when I'd come into a city where I'd be doing a baptism tour, and there were a lot of people waiting for one of us to come out and do their baptism, I would arrange with the local YMCA at that time in the early 60s. You know, they were, YMCAs had a nice open door policy, and they had swimming pools in the YMCAs, and he said I would arrange with them ahead of time to be able to use the pool on that day, and I'd have everybody come at the same time. I'd have sometimes 25 and 30 people present at a baptism. And he said I would baptize all 25 or 30 of them in the same hour or two, just one right after another. And so Mr. Smith gave me tips on baptism. He's done more. Let's see. So what was I going to tell you? So I don't expect we'd be doing 25 or 30, but and Woody would be happy. He would love to see some more of you who want to be baptized or need to be baptized, desire to be baptized. He'd like to see you make the commitment, and then afterward, with the laying on of hands, receive God's Holy Spirit, a measure of help. Now, some of you God is calling. He's working His Spirit with you right now, but there's a difference that you're going to love when He actually puts it inside you. A small measure. It unites with the Spirit in man, and it just further helps your understanding. He's working that Spirit with you now to open up your understanding and drawing you with that, but then He's going to give you this great blessing of having that Spirit once you've proved to God and established to Him that you are a safe risk. Now, why do I say safe risk? If you open your Bible to 2 Peter 3, verse 9, actually begin in verse 8, where God says, first of all, a day with God is as 1,000 years, or 1,000 years is as a day with God. It works either way with God. Time is not relative to God the way it is with us. And He's saying that for a reason. He's saying that in the next verse where He says He's long-suffering with us, patient with us. And He explains why He is so patient. Like since Mr. Armstrong has died, God has allowed more than 30 years to go by where He's just had things trolling on hold, kind of, waiting for us to do this thing in the next verse, verse 36. We'll come right back to it. Let me just finish saying this. Verse 9, God says He's long-suffering. Time is not like it is with us. He's patient and long-suffering, not willing that any should perish. If God were to have gone ahead and wrapped it up soon after Mr. Armstrong died, brethren, a lot of you and possibly me would have, been headed for the lake of fire. We just weren't pulling it together. Let's go to the next verse, verse 36. I'm going to show you something. This verse not only applies to being accounted worthy to escape. Let's look at the end of this verse together, at the bottom of it. First of all, Christ says, watch. Now, the therefore is because the great tribulation comes as a snare. Because that thing comes unexpectedly, you better be watching and praying so that you can, first of all, in time order, be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass. Now, He's saying, watch the first four seals. The fifth seal is not open yet in the way of being active. And God's end-time apostle Herbert Armstrong has put it this way: the next major event in prophecy is the opening of that fifth seal, which commences with the Great Tribulation. And at the beginning of that Great Tribulation, Mr. Armstrong has told us that one of the first things that beast does after he ascends out of the bottomless pit is to commence round 3 of World War. And he'll commence it with a blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg in German means like a lightning bolt. I mean, you don't know when a lightning bolt is about to hit, and by the time you know it's hitting, it's too late to move. It comes suddenly, it comes with full force, and it's just boom! It's got you. And that's the way the Germans, the modern-day Assyrians, the Germans, the Austrians also, the Prussians, that's part of Germany, that's the part of Germany who were the Nazis. They already plan a blitzkrieg for the commencement of round 3 of World War. They said their generals toward the end of World War II, before it was ended, before the war was, it wasn't, to them it wasn't the war being lost, it was just a battle, a round of war being lost. They said, we know what we did wrong in this battle. And in the next battle, we're going to correct that problem. What they did wrong was try to do World War while there were big superpower enemies on the earth like the UK and the US and Russia. And they said, what we're going to do next time, but they're focusing, for some reason in their talk, they only focused on the sons of Israel. They said, next time, we are going to wipe out the United Kingdom and the United States before we commence war with the rest of the world. And so what they've just announced toward the end of World War II, before World War II was over, they announced that they would be fulfilling Ezekiel chapter 6, verse 6, Ezekiel 6:6, which says, if modern-day Israel, the birthright sons especially, if Ephraim, the modern-day descendants of Ephraim in the United Kingdom, if the modern-day descendants of Manasseh in the United States do not repent, and God says they won't, Ezekiel 3, verse 7, or is it, yeah, God says, or is it 37, verse 3, one or the other, God says that modern-day Israel is impudent and hard-hearted. He says, they won't change. So he says, through Ezekiel, if you don't, and he knows you won't, at these latter days, when it's possible for all your cities to be laid waste with nuclear hydrogen bombs on the heads of a missile that can now stealthily be sent in, as Russia says, flying at patterns and things that no present or future defense system can stop them from getting to their targets before they hit their target. And God says, and so that now exists where our cities can be destroyed, and Russia's got, as they announced in the address to the nation this year by Putin, in the address to the Russian nation, he said, we got nukes pointed at 130 American cities and more nukes pointed at all of America's major strategic military command posts. And so when Germany, as the head of the EU, decides it's going to commence round 3 of World War, they'll grab those missiles of Russia, fire them off at the U.S., they'll fire off some missiles they get from Iran or make themselves some other way, from China, who knows how they get them, from North Korea. And they will fire those off at the UK first, and later that same day or the next day, because of the forwardness of the clock, first they'll strike the UK, and then a few hours later, same day, next day, they'll hit the U.S. in a blitzkrieg. Nobody will know they're coming. It'll just be boom, boom, and they'll stealthily hit the cities. 1/3 of the people will die from direct hits, God says through Ezekiel. A second third will die from the radiation, the nuclear fallout. And then the third who remain will be scooped up and taken captive to the old Holocaust museums that they'll reopen in Europe. Some will die there in captivity. A small percentage, like the hairs in the skirt of Ezekiel, which Mr. Armstrong says that represents about 10% of the people on the face of the earth, will live on over into the world tomorrow after Christ returns. But now, the bottom part of this verse is where I want to focus you. Let's get our attention back right here. I said, look, if you're not doing this watching the 4 seals that are active, and then praying always. Now that word, if you look up the word rendered as always in the King James and other versions, if you look it up in a good Greek-English lexicon, you'll find that the original Greek word there means pray without ceasing, and then it adds elements like pray with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, with all your mind. And without ceasing, always, it means all the time. Well, how can I pray at work? Well, you can pray while you work, even if you're typing something, even if you're stocking shelves in a grocery store, or putting up sheetrock, or lifting heavy weights, whatever. You can be praying while you work. We learn from computers what is multitasking. A computer can multitask and handle several different projects at the same time. Some of them totally differently some of them not related to one another at all. I mean, you can have a spreadsheet program up doing all kind of mathematical calculations. You can have another program up doing video conversion, or all the different things you can do on a computer. That computer can do multitasking. It can do several things at one time. Even if you got a blockhead, one-track mind like I do, like Mr. Armstrong said he had, where he really focuses on one thing at a time, when you're working on one thing, you can still, even blockhead, one-track mind me, I can still pray while I'm doing something else. I can be thinking about people that are starving, people whose kids got killed in a bomb drop in Syria, etc., etc., etc. You can be thinking about that and praying, God, bring your kingdom, help those people. Let's get this thing wrapped up. And even right now, those people that are starving, let's get some food over to them. Thankfully, the UK and the US are still good-hearted and send ships with food to ravaged areas. The UK was very notable in doing that in the Bahamas after that big tornado or hurricane that went through there as part of that storm. Starts with a D. Was that Dorian? And so was Israel. Israel is noted for sending food and sending medical doctors, sending doctors to patch people up who've broken arms or, lost a lot of blood or, just need health care attention. The UK, the Israel is really good at that, and the UK is too, and sending food. Those are your sons of Israel. There is a certain care, even in carnal people of the world, for others in problems. God really wants to see that out of us. He's called and given His Spirit. He wants us to see us. If we can't go there or send food there ourselves or send health care help ourselves, we can do more than that. We can pray, and God can engineer the help, which He will do based on our prayers. He's hearing us. He's responding to us. He loves us. He wants a dynamic relationship with us. And so one wonderful way we can have that, probably the best way we can have that, has a promise with it that gives a great double blessing to you when you do it. So God wants us to watch the news, see where people are hurt, injured, in need of help, and to pray about those people affected by these events. Pray for them with all our heart, showing care for them to God and asking God to intervene. And He says when you do that, He's holding out a big carrot. And here's what, Woody, hope you don't mind mentioning this. Woody has enjoyed getting carrots and apples. I got it. If you want to have a fun feast, if you would like to come and join us, we've got some animals here that I think Woody will tell you you'll just love them. They're high-spirited horse, loves those carrots and apples. That horse will jump up and do spins in the air practically. I may be exaggerating that a little bit, but let me let Woody tell you about that sometime. That horse go crazy. You give him a carrot, give him an apple, and but God holds out a carrot for us. And the goat and the donkey loves that too. Another couple of crazy animals here. A couple of cats, a couple of crazy cats, loving cats. Here's the promise God holds out. Do these two things, these two prerequisites that the Father and Christ are looking to see if we're doing each day. And if you are, they're writing your name in the book of life. And that book of life includes being accounted worthy to escape the great tribulation. Look at the two promises. That if you do these two prerequisites, you get two promises from God. Much greater promises given to you than what you're giving in your prayer. You just got to spend time and effort, and it does take time and effort to do these prayers. You got to sometimes make yourself do it. But look at the price you get, the reward you get. It's worth it. That you may be accounted worthy, first of all in time order, to escape all these things that shall come to pass, beginning with the fifth seal, great tribulation. You get to escape that and all that comes after that, all the things that shall come to pass after the great tribulation begins, including after this heavenly signs, the year-long day of the Lord. Woody read the details of that last night. Holy smoke, if you don't mind my putting it that way, Father. That seventh seal of consisting of seven trumpets begins with the first four trumpets being the four winds, which wipe out things of the earth, conveniences for men, and the last three of those trumpets of the seventh seal being the three woes. Woe, 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 Christ said through the Apostle John, writing what he gave him in a vision. That third woe being the seven last plagues, which are done after Christ returns. Sorry, those of you who love to listen, who followed Ted Armstrong, even after he was disfellowshipped himself, and Mr. Armstrong just confirmed what Ted himself did. Ted would preach contrary to his father, saying that Christ didn't return until after the seven last plagues were poured out. That's not in your Bible. That's just Ted Armstrong speaking on his own wrong hoof, and woof, and contrary to what his dad preached, which he had some joy in doing. He hated and despised some of the truth that God gave us through his father. Now, yes, I love Ted Armstrong, so somebody say, oh, don't talk about wonderful Ted. Well, Ted needs to repent of some things, and God in his mercy may allow him to do it. As Mr. Armstrong, his father, said, there were some put in high position who were never even converted. It means they never had God's Spirit. They could quote and parrot things. Even help bring brethren into the church, but never had God's Spirit themselves. Now that's a blessing, because that means instead of the third resurrection, they can come up in the second resurrection and still be part of the family. Ted was Herbert Armstrong's son. Well, Herbert Armstrong's definitely going to be in the first resurrection in a very prominent position as the end-time apostle. You better believe we are still going to be under Mr. Armstrong. Some of you who hate and despise and preach against the truth God gave us through Mr. Armstrong, and you speak against his servant the way you do, you'd better go read Numbers, 14 or Numbers 12, where God gives the example of Moses' brother and sister, Miriam and Aaron, his sister and his brother. I mentioned Miriam first because she seemed to have the worst attitude. Aaron would go along with people who were sinning and then immediately repent when God called him on the carpet about it. And when God called Miriam and Aaron on the carpet about speaking against God's servant and friend Moses, saying, look, I correct him. You don't even speak against him the way you are. I hear it here in the heavens. And you make me upset with you, and because I love you and have called you, I'm correcting you now. And Aaron repented immediately. Oh, Lord, I'm sorry. Miriam still had an attitude like, you're taking up for my brother. You shouldn't be doing that. And God left the leprosy on her for a week so she could go learn a lesson. And of course, with leprosy, they put you outside the camp, so Miriam was put outside the camp for a whole week. And during that week, apparently, she repented, at least somewhat, because God took the leprosy off of her and let her back in the camp. Maybe she learned a lesson like, oh boy, if I speak against my brother Moses, God's going to put this leprosy back on me, and then the camp will be stopped from moving. They'll put me outside the camp. Maybe they won't stop the camp from moving this time. Maybe they'll put me outside the camp and just leave me, desert me. And it certainly would be deserved when you speak against God's servant. Well, let's finish this up and get to singing a hymn. I'll read you a couple of things, and if we have time left, I'll play you a telecast that I just pulled up that hopefully I haven't showed before. The last part of this verse has the biggest promise in it, the best promise, where God says you can be accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man, here in this last line. You get two promises. You get accounted worthy to escape the great tribulation and what follows. You get an opportunity to be accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man. We're talking about the first resurrection. So if you don't do these two prerequisites, you're not only not accounted worthy to escape, at that moment in time, you're not accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man in the first resurrection. You are not accounted worthy of the first resurrection if you're not obeying Christ's voice and instruction recorded in Luke 21:36 to be watching without ceasing, watching always, and watching and praying always. You can't pray always unless you're watching every day. Now, you can do the news watching on your own, but we usually, if I'm doing my job fully, I spend the whole day, at least 5 hours, should be spending the good 8, and once we get things settled here, Woody will be able to tell you, yeah, Steve is up there knocking away at this 8 hours a day, searching the back pages, the front pages, the in-between pages, to be sure we've got the most relevant things to the seals. And Woody and I discussed, Woody's been a good help here. It's out of the mouths of babes sometimes wisdom, great wisdom comes. We've got an order we plan to put the program in a certain 4, 2, 3, 1 order of the seals that will make the program have a good logical flow and an emotional ending, where the stuff at the end will be the most emotional things, so that when we close the program, you'll be hopefully very emotionally moved, inspired to get on your knees and pray, God, help those people where this or that happened. Hopefully something we can give you that's moving, and there's so much of that in the news today that you got no excuse if you're not doing this praying always. You got to watch first, and if you tune in with us on World Watch TV Sunday through Thursday night, especially if you're working another job, you come home tired, you don't want to have to spend a lot of time going through the paper or the newscast, flipping here and there, trying to watch this and that, figuring out what to pray, and then you're all tired from doing all that, can't get the prayer in. Just tune in with us. We're going to put it on a silver platter for you every night, 1 hour program. Now, I'm doing shorter programs this week just ahead of, we postponed our mortgage inspection from last Thursday to this coming Tuesday. We're not going to be ready for it. I've got a mountain of work to do between now, sunset now, and Tuesday when that mortgage inspector comes, just to get things rearranged in order where he can walk through the halls and go measure what he has to measure and see what he needs to see. And and then a lot of this stuff I'm just deciding, my parents' old stuff, you know, you want to come to town early, you want some old stuff, I'm just either throwing most of it away or setting it aside to take down to the flea market and give it to people to just sell down there, or give it to my neighbors. We're just getting rid of excess stuff because, you know, I brought my stuff in here, brought stuff from other people in here who move in here with me for a while, and some of them left their stuff, so I got stuff to get rid of. Anyway, we're doing it, and I got a lot of work between now and Tuesday. Yeah, I'd love to cancel the mortgage if I could and just pay for it another way. Some of you that might owe a lot of back tithes and offerings you've just been sitting on, read that book, Ending Your Financial Worry, and see how God might inspire you. It might wind up, God puts it in your head to do us a big favor here. One of you did recently, first tithe offering I've received in a long time on other than a holy day, came in a few weeks ago from one of you. I want to say, you did it to God, but I want to just express thank you for following God's inspiration to motivate you to send it here. It salvaged a few things where I was going to have to go out and take out another loan that I would then have payments on top of. And at some point, the amount I'm borrowing on my reverse mortgage is, the first year they only give you half. To be able to pay off what I owe, I might still owe more than what I could borrow the first year. Anyway, a big thank you for that. But what I can give you here is the encouragement to do what Christ says here, so you can, number one goal, it's last in time order. It comes 3.5 years after, if you're counted worthy to escape. Otherwise, you're going to wind up facing the beast, and if you hold firm and you're in the grave and accounted worthy because you resisted the beast, you're doing it the hard way. It's much better to watch and pray, be accounted worthy to escape, be alive when Christ returns, and stand before the Son of Man in the first resurrection. But if you're not doing this, you're going to have to give your life in a martyrdom during the Great Tribulation, because you're going to be left behind to that, and those who are left behind, the beast is going to say, work on the Sabbath or off with your head, or they could torture you first, as Mr. Armstrong explains, horrible tortures, or they'll burn you at the stake, the old way they love to do it. And the other thing they'll require is to bow down before the image of the beast. That's things converted people should not want to do. If you do that, you've taken the mark of the beast, you won't be in God's kingdom, and you'll suffer the day of the Lord. He'll leave you alive through that. Because to keep yourself alive so the beast doesn't kill you, you'll be alive during the day of the Lord. You'll suffer that. And because you took the mark of the beast, you will not be in God's kingdom. You can buy your way out of it with martyrdom if you get left behind because you didn't do this before the fifth seal opens up. And at the time of the fifth seal, that's the judgment. You are not accounted worthy for the first resurrection, as well as not being accounted worthy to escape the tribulation. See, this is twofold. These two prerequisites apply against both promises. If you do the watching and the praying, you get accounted worthy to escape the Great Tribulation and what follows, and you're accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man. Now, you still got to continue during the 3.5 years in the place of nourishment to grow and not get angry with somebody because they got a better cave or rock than you got to sleep on. Or you can still blow it. As long as you're in this flesh, you can still blow it right up till Christ returns. But no, he's going to do the sealing after 2.5 years. By that point, he's going to know who's going to hang it out. He knows us. The sealing comes after 2.5 years into the Great Tribulation, the sixth sealing, right after the sixth seal, heavenly signs and the sun, the moon, the stars, and all that darkness. Then, for a half hour before the seventh seal starts of silence, there's the sealing of the 144,000. But that's 2.5 years after the Great Tribulation begins. If you weren't accounted worthy to escape, you'd probably be dead by then, by the time the day of the Lord begins, because to be in God's kingdom, you'll have to have given your life in martyrdom during that Great Tribulation. So that's the way that works. All right. And Woody went through scriptures that tell you that as he read the booklet last night, the details of the book of Revelation unveiled at last. Again, if you didn't see last night's Bible study, I encourage you for the rest of this Sabbath, go to our archive, cogtv.org, look for the archive video tab and select last night's Bible study. Watch it there from YouTube, or if you know how to find our video page on Facebook Live, it's on the Sabbath Service page. Click videos, look for the date for last night. And you can watch it from Facebook if you prefer watching it from Facebook. Okay, but there's what we should be encouraged to do. Do these two prerequisites. Watch and pray always. Watch because the thing's coming like a thief in the night. And pray always. Do these two things, watch and pray, so that you can be accounted worthy. Two great goals. First, in time order, escape the Great Tribulation. Then after 3.5 years, be accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man in the first resurrection, that the spring harvest is called to. only resurrection that gets to marry Jesus Christ. The second resurrection, they come in as children, not the wife, not the bride of Christ. This makes this a most special calling. And Walter, I'm going to see what you say there, but if I may, on the public thing, there are any of you not baptized that grew up in the church and you kind of know these truths and you're watching? Don't put it off any longer. Do like Woody's doing. Man, schedule a date to be baptized. Have hands laid on you. Receive God's Holy Spirit. And you're on your way toward the first resurrection as long as you keep doing these qualifications. And of course, it's in the same book, Luke 21, in the same book of Luke, where in Luke 4:4, also in Matthew 4:4, Christ tells us, him speaking here in Luke 21:36, Christ speaking in Luke 4, verse 4, Matthew 4:4, man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. We got to live by every word. We keep the commandments. Christ told us to keep, if you love me, keep my commandments. And we got to go over and above on top of keeping the commandments. I mean, you read Revelation 12, verse 17, and it says, those who are left behind, the remnant, who are now facing the beast, it says they were keeping the commandments. And so some of you that have written me said, well, then why did they get left behind? Stephen, they weren't keeping the commandments. Read that verse, God speaking, Revelation 12, verse 17 says they were too. They were keeping the commandments. But they weren't doing this. This is not a commandment. This is an over to the top. This is an instruction of Jesus Christ. Yeah, you could call it a command, but it's not part of the 10 commandments. This would be the 11th and 12th commandment if you wanted to number them. I mean, if that were the right number, there are other instructions you could call commands. So I'm not going to say make this 11, 12. There may be some other things we're instructed to do that you could consider commands, vocal commands of Christ to us. And they were written down, too, here. Like this is written down in Luke 21:36. You know, so it's an instruction. It's a command. If you don't do it, you're not going to be accounted worthy to escape. You're not going to be accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man. I mean, read the verse. It's all together, right there. Study your English grammar if you don't understand this verse. Okay, brethren, let's move on now. Let's sing a hymn together. And then what I'm going to do after that is we will read to you Tom's topic message for today. And then if we have time, we'll play a telecast. If we don't have time, I've been playing a lot of telecasts to you. They're in our archive. Well, we may not have time. Sometimes I just need to talk to you. And you all know that I'm hanging in there 100% with the truths God taught us through his end-time apostle Herbert Armstrong. We very often play his telecast, broadcast, sermons, Bible study. With the holy days coming up, you're really going to get a feed of God's end-time apostle speaking. And even though he's in the grave, God's got his material, his speaking by via recordings. It's as if he's speaking from the grave, because all those wonderful things and his speaking is preserved for us. We can get it direct from the horse's mouth. But sometimes we need to be refreshed and be encouraged to stay with Mr. Armstrong on everything. All doctrine, even the stuff you consider little. Like, I'm going to go ahead and do this even before we sing. If some of you tune out and you say, forget you, Stephen, well, that's your problem. Some of you, you need to deal with even what you consider the small stuff, because it's not as small as you think. It's big stuff. Vanity. I'm going to hang it right there for a moment. I'll step on your toes a little harder later. And eventually, even though you may be mad at me right now, you'll thank me later. Let's sing this hymn together, though. You'll thank me later if you make yourself do it, because it'll make the difference whether you are accounted worthy to rise in the first resurrection or not. That's how big some of the small stuff is. All right, but let's take a pause. Be refreshed. Sing together. our thanks for God giving us the truth, and let's praise his name. Let me find the button that gets this thing full screen for you. It should be 44, I think. Is that it? Yep, that's it. Let's see what happens when I hit this button. We get the whole thing on the screen. Nah, it comes up a little short. I can, we're going to sing this hymn together. Hang on with me, and what I'll do, no, I need that shot for, all right, just a second, I'm in trouble. I got to duplicate this shot, which I can do. Thank you for bearing with me as we take just a brief pause so we can sing together. I get the right button up here in a moment. Where is that button? Okay. Okay, there it is. I found it. I got to go back to the top screen area. We hit this. Duplicate it. Oh, I'm hitting the wrong button. That's why. Okay, I got it. Brothers, thank you for your patience with me. I just signed us on real hastily this morning. All right, is this the whole thing or not? No, it's not. It's coming up short. Wait a minute. That is the whole thing. Let's see. There we go. I've got one already. Okay, I found it. That's number 70. That's a good number. Okay, let's all sing together with the Ambassador Chorale. I will praise thee, O eternal. From Psalm 9. All right. Oh, hang on, brethren. I'm wrong. Let's just leave that on the screen for a second, and I'm going to adjust it. It doesn't have the full view in there. Let's see. Up and down is here. Oh. Let's see. Okay, yes, I do have the whole thing. I'm sorry. All right, we'll back that up and we'll start again. Here we go. From Psalm 9, I will praise thee, O eternal. Starting with verse 1, everybody else sing together. I will praise thee, O eternal. With the chorale, I will show forth thy great works. Boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Last verse 3, everybody. Toward who dwells in Zion, sing to him. Boom, boom, boom. All right, some of you know why I put the boom, boom, booms in there, remembering Cat Williams. All right, thank you, brother, to those of you who sang along with us on that. That gives you a chance, opportunity to participate in the song service. By feast time, we hope to have a lot of these hymns converted to the scrolling text with the big text so you can see it easy. And be singing every day during the Feast of Tabernacles. And John, I answered you in your message to me, but in case you haven't seen that yet and you've tuned in here, yes, we will be live streaming services every day, God willing, during the feast, and from our new studio downstairs with a small live audience. And the live audience will understand we will be focusing our attention on those of you who watch via the live stream, so we're not going to leave you out there disconnected. We're going to put our focus on you, and we'll be, during that time, every day we're going to have a sermon, a Bible study, perhaps a really good telecast from Mr. Armstrong. And we'll be hearing directly every day during the feast from God's end-time apostle, Herbert Armstrong. There will be encouragement that everything he says we follow. Some of you need to be prepared for this. Those of you who are coming here, bring your washcloths, your facial cloths, and do not bring your makeup. We will not be holding services with somebody in the midst of the service wearing makeup. I don't care how lightly you put it on. That means none. Zero. Oh, you big mean Stephen. We're just following God's truth given to us through his end-time apostle who set that as a doctrine in the church. He did not change that doctrine from the pulpit, and no one has authority to interpret anything Mr. Armstrong said or alter that doctrine set from the pulpit. And the purpose, if you'll read it and study it, one of these nights I'm going to ask Woody if he would be willing to read the original booklet on, Woody, what's the title of that? It's got a title to it, something about makeup. And it's available online. You can read it yourself. And one of these nights, if Woody's willing, I believe he may be, he, like a lot of us men, Woody told me last night, he said, Stephen, even before I became aware of the church and the truth, I didn't like makeup. I had an old girlfriend. I wouldn't kiss her if she had makeup on. And Woody, I hope you don't mind my telling that. That's the same thing applies to me. I didn't like that makeup, before I came in the church. And when I came in the church and came to college and found out all the girls at the time I came in 1970, makeup was off. It was so refreshing. Some of you women don't understand how much more beautiful we find you without a painted, colored, muddied up face. I mean, you're just naturally much more beautiful. We're seeing what's inside of you on your face. I mean, we're seeing the real lovely you shine. And that stuff you paint on, we see that as a mask. And we're always wondering, what's the real you like? And what's with this mask? And why are you wearing this mask? As Mr. Armstrong explained it, it is the first sin of the devil. Lucifer turned Satan. Vanity. He said if Mother Eve had a mirror, she would have been plastering her face, after she ate the forbidden fruit. And it's just, most of us don't welcome it. We don't like it. Oh, but the rest of the world does it. And that's another reason why you should give it up. We are to come out of this world. Yeah, but I'll appear peculiar and weird and different looking to them and all my relatives. Well, especially if your relatives are attending services, they should see you setting an example. And then they'll ask you, Mom, Grandma, why aren't you wearing makeup? Well, because it's vanity. You tell them the truth, especially you women. Tell the other women. It's a lot better if you tell them. I mean, there's even a verse of Scripture that says the women, the older women in the church, should teach the younger women about modesty of dress. In the world, that's very obviously not being done. God wired a man so that immodesty creates a problem for a man. And if you don't understand that, just ask, ask your brother, ask your dad, ask a man. And they'll tell you, yeah, we're wired a little differently. We see things a little differently than you do. Flesh of a woman creates the chemistry God put together to cause a man to become like a ram with a lamb. If you got farm animals, just watch your farm animals. You learn a lot. All right, I'm not going to say any more than that. I will be playing the sermons of Mr. Armstrong. And then after he speaks, I'm going to tell you that has not been changed. That applies today. And as he said, listen, this is one reason it is extremely important. I have Luke 21:36 up on the screen. God's end-time apostle who sets doctrine in the church, and God backs up the doctrine of his apostle, and there's no new apostle. Only an apostle can set or change doctrine. God's made it so there's no new apostle. God's not going to trust any man to be appointed apostle who might compromise the truth God gave us through Mr. Armstrong. So if God brought up a new apostle somewhere and the man said, "Oh yeah, we don't need to do that makeup stuff," and he blows all that, then women are into this vanity thing, and vanity is not going to be rise to meet Christ in the air. Those are God's end times apostles' words. I am going to play those for you during the feast, and maybe even before the feast. And it'll be up to you, you know. What you do when you're not here, Mr. Armstrong used to tell us, your kids tell us, women, your kids tell us, you come to church, you wash your face, you come to church. He said, but you get home, they said, Mom plasters it back on as soon as she's home. She wears it to work, she wears it here, she wears it there. Mr. Armstrong said, your kids tell us, ladies, what you're doing. You think you're doing it in secret? God sees it. It's vain to him. And he says, left a doctrine saying, don't wear the stuff. Come out of the world. I used to wear a hairpiece. Oh, yeah, when I took that thing off, I was embarrassed like crazy. I got all these comments. Oh, I didn't know you wore a hairpiece. You've been wearing a hairpiece. I thought that was your real hair. Yeah, well, it wasn't. But thankfully, I did it on the day, not knowing. I had no advance word that Mr. Armstrong was going to set the church back on track with makeup that day. And so a lot of the ladies who thought I knew ahead of time, which I did, ladies, I did not. I'll just tell you honestly, frankly, I didn't know that ahead of time. Some of the ladies said, well, Stephen, thank you. Thank me for what? Well, you took your hairpiece off because we had to take our makeup off. And, I vainly wore a hairpiece, making it look like I had an Elvis Presley head of hair. Golly, I mean, grew a beard with it at one time. I was a real mess out there. Well, nothing wrong with a beard. Even David's men, when half their beard was shaved off, David told them, hold back, don't come back into the camp until the side of your beard they shaved off to humiliate you until it grows back. That's an important part of a man's appearance, is being. But it's natural. Beard is natural. You just don't shave, but you should keep it, if you wear one, you should keep it nicely trimmed. But if it don't grow on your head, it don't grow on your head. Putting that stuff up there is just vanity, men or women. Now, there are some possible exceptions if you've got a flaw, or, you know what I mean. And I'm wondering if I can tell this. I should speak to the person first. There is one lady, I hope she's going to take a before and after picture, who requested an anointing last week, or actually week before last. I mailed out the anointing cloth at the beginning of the week. Hopefully you should at least have it by today. I'm not going to tell you who yet, even though it is good. The second part of James 5, 14, 16, verse 16, 17, after getting the anointing, it says, tell your brethren about your affinity so that they can pray for you. And the effectual fervent, that's all part of that same verse, the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. So I hope you will want to allow me to share that so I can ask other brethren to pray for a woman who I don't know the reason. I should ask about that, by the way. I would like to know. And I am praying for you, and I can beat my prayers finer if you'll tell me what caused you to lose your hair. Was it maybe a cancer and chemotherapy or radiation or something, where after people have had that, their hair falls out? Or was it some hereditary problem or some other problem? Whatever. I don't actually need to know, but I could beat my prayers finer for you, saying that to God, hey, you know how this or that happened? Will you please, as she has requested, restore her hair to you? Now, some of you may say, God won't do that. Well, let me tell you about something God did do that one of my fellow ministerial friends, he was a year ahead of me in college, told me one day when I was sitting down with him. He said, Stephen, he said, a gal came in a few months ago, and he said, she asked me to anoint her for a missing tooth. And he said, I told her, I said, well, look, you're an adult, and when you're a kid, you can grow a new tooth. But he said, God doesn't usually do that. And And she said, well, I believe he will. Well, the minister didn't, but it's not the faith of the minister. The minister just has to do the anointing, has to do the prayer for you, and ask for what you ask for. He's got to oblige you in that. He's your servant. He is your servant in that sense. I mean, he's serving you. He's under you in that. He has to do what you ask him if you ask for an anointing. And so the minister did. He said, God, the gal missing a tooth, she had me anoint her for it. She wants a new tooth. I know you don't usually do that, but she told me to ask you for that. He was actually shocked when that gal, that woman, came back into him 3 months later, opened up her mouth and said, say, would you like to see my new tooth? And he said, yeah, show me that. And he said, she opened her mouth and there was a new tooth there. And it was growing. It was in the process of growing, and it hadn't been put in by an implant by a dentist. It was a growing new adult tooth. And he was amazed. And I thank you, Robin, for sharing that with me, because that has been a great increase to my faith. And when I hear people ask for anything, I say, look, if you believe God's going to do that for you, certainly, as God's servant and as a servant to you, as the representative of God, I will, as you ask, I will anoint you for that. I'll ask God to give that to you. Now, you should ask your fellow friends. Tell them you've been anointed for that. And ask them to pray. And do take a before and after picture. That would be encouraging to people. Well, you may not want to do that, but if you were willing and allowing for the encouragement of people's faith, that could be good. But you might not want to do that for some reason, and I would understand. All right, brethren, let's go to a couple of things I told you we'd get to. We're not going to get to the telecast. But we've got plenty of those in our archive. If you're looking for something else to watch today, if you've already seen the Bible study last night, which I really encourage you to hear Woody read that booklet, the book of Revelation Unveiled at Last, to you. And then if you can possibly do it, it would thrill Woody's heart for each one of you who could and would be here, even if you're traveling to the feast somewhere else. We got it a couple of days before the evening the feast starts. You could still be traveling on over to Florida, Texas, wherever, whether you're flying or driving, whatever. You can still stop in here on October 11 for Woody's baptism. We'll do it in the afternoon so that if some of you arrive or driving during the day, you can get here by the afternoon. We'll do his baptism in the afternoon. Might be a few others baptized. And if you need baptism, just come on in. I'll counsel you for a little bit. And if your answers are convincing that you should be baptized, boom. Can I put it this way? We'll throw you in the water with Woody there. We'll duck you in the water and completely submerge you under the water so that your old self has symbolically died and the new life in Christ comes up. But that'll be on October 11 this year, 2019. We'd love to have you for that. Let's go to, let's take a look at what Walter said first, if you don't mind. I'm going to take a look. Oh, good. It's very short, so I can read it ahead and see if we can. Oh, thank you, Walter. Good comment. Fits right in context with what I was just saying about Woody doing an outstanding job reading that booklet, the Book of Revelation, unveiled at last night in the Bible study. Walter, who's coming down here from Canada, who will be here to see Woody's baptism on October 11. He'll be arriving October 8th, the day of Atonement begins in the evening. It's sunset October 8 and October 9. Walter will be flying in the afternoon of October 8, and he'll be here for atonement. He'll be here for Woody's baptism, and he was with us last night for the Bible study live stream, and he says, "Dear Stephen, a happy Sabbath to you. Happy Sabbath back to you, Walter." Thank you. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Thumbs up. Back at you. A happy Sabbath to you. I just finished listening to Woody read the book of Revelation, and he's done an excellent job. Same thing I was saying there. I agree with you, Walter. Excellent job. I'm looking, so Woody, that was for you. Walter goes on and says, I'm looking forward to meeting both of you. He's referring to me and Woody next month. And Walter, you'll get to see those who are traveling from other areas as well. Jeannie from Pennsylvania, and maybe a sister from Florida who, if she comes up, she's wanting to be baptized. And so that might be a second baptism along with Woody. And I won't mention her name till we either know she's coming or she gives me a thumbs up okay to let people know. And at this moment, she's not coming, so it's kind of a moot point in a way. Anyway, I mean, she's not sure she can come. So, and some of you may be last minute, and that's fine. We can accommodate that. Like I said, there's plenty of hotels in the area, very close by, beautiful, nice hotels, not that terribly expensive, and even less expensive than a hotel. I got lots of acreage, beautiful woods, nice leveled off places where you could run down the street to those places where you get those portable buildings, pay them their first, second month, or you can get one as low as $200 a month. They only require first and second month. They haul them in free. They take them away free. And there may be some reason why I would decide to just keep paying it after the first couple of months' pay. But for 2 months, they'll bring one in. Into the second month, they haul it away. So you could leave it here for, we could house a homeless person in the early part of the winter, or maybe somebody else wants to move down here. We'd have a place we could provide where they could just inexpensively pay that, continue paying that, whatever size you get, $200 or $300 a month is the fee on those little buildings. They're nice. We just put a bed in there. Boom, you got it. You could use the bath up here. We can accommodate you however you want to do it. So if you don't have the bucks for a hotel, rent you one of these little buildings. $200 or $300 covered the whole week. Cover more than the whole week. You want to stick around longer? Stick around. You'll be welcome. Woody and I will put you to work. We got lots to do here and lots of plans for building on that church land, God willing. And that creek back there don't rise. And we don't have to worry too much about that creek. I kind of say it as a fun joke. Usually the old saying, and when people say, God willing, they often tag to it the old expression, and the creek don't rise. God willing, and the creek don't. I actually have a creek, so I just say it in fun. But my creek, you'd have to go down the hill. We may be going over to Blue Creek to baptize Woody, or if it's too cold, we'll use a YMCA swimming pool. Or we'll use the horse. Woody's even said, look, you can baptize me in the horse trough. It's a big old horse trough. It's deep enough to get all of him down there under it. Of course, we'd have to tie Frankie up. Frankie is the horse. Frankie might not be too happy, Woody, if he sees you in his tub of water, his horse trough. But anyway, what I was saying, if some of you need or want to be baptized, come on, we can do that for you as well. And did I skip a thought here? I've been up late. The other night I was up to 3 o'clock getting things ready for the inspector. And even though we had already postponed him, I just said, man, I'm going to make sure hopefully don't have to postpone him again. All right. Walter said, I'm looking forward to meeting both of you next month. Enjoy the Sabbath. Kind regards, Walter. Thank you very much, Walter. Appreciate that. Okay, and the time we have remaining, I want to see what the topic is today from Tom Williams. And, he's already gotten an answer from one of the other Internet Ambassador Club spokesman men. Has already answered Tom's topic for today. So we could do both. I think I should start with the topic. And I didn't get a chance to get it up on screen where you can see it with me or where I can read it from the teleprompter. I'm just going to have to read it from the Wi-Fi device I have in my hand. So I'll be looking at this a little bit, but I'm going to tell you what Tom did for his topic today. I'm reading it cold. I'm kind of scanning ahead, see if there's anything. It's the topic, so there shouldn't be anything in here. What are you going to like this where he's making reference to simple? You might want to encourage your friend to tune in and hear this part. You might not want her to hear the previous part, but you'd be okay with this, I think. All right, here's the topic. for the Internet Spokesman's Club for this week. Tom writes, after getting laid off from the Spanish department in 1995, that was the time when Bernie Schnippert, on behalf of the Pastor General Joe Tkach Jr., or JT2 as some of us call him, or as he calls himself, JT2. His dad was Joseph Tkach Sr., JT1. He did a big, they call it a layoff, but since it was a permanent layoff, it was like 2,000 people were fired. 1,200 people out of a couple thousand, at least 1,200 people were dismissed from their jobs all in the same day. I mean, there was more crying going on at headquarters in Pasadena that day in 1995 than I've ever seen in my life. And as Tom puts it here, after getting laid off, permanently laid off by the apostate Pastor General from the Spanish department in 1995, one of the hardest things that I struggled to get used to in the world was, and now Tom had worked 25 years for the work, so now all of a sudden he's off, and so for working for the work is different than working in the world. I mean, it's like you're in a heavenly oasis working in the work. Even though there will be some struggles and difficulties, you never have to ask for the Sabbath off. You never have to ask for a holy day or the feast time off. One of the hardest things, Tom says, after that, being dismissed in 1995, being laid off, as he put it, one of the hardest things I struggled to get used to in the world was the very noticeable lack of the simplicity that is in Christ. The simplicity that is in Christ. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 3, Tom cites. At both of the full-time jobs I ended up having after leaving Big Sandy, I never really got used to that hardness that accompanies the general worldliness permeating most workplaces. See, I was telling you, it's like an oasis working for the work. In the world, there's, like he said, a hardness that accompanies the general worldliness permeating most workplaces. Gone was the very pleasant feeling of simplicity. Woody, a friend might like that in this sentence, maybe, I don't know. Gone was that very pleasant feeling of simplicity that was obviously present not only in the Spanish department, but as far as I know, in all of the other departments at Pasadena headquarters. I'll testify to that, give witness to that with you, Tom, because I worked in television department my first 2 years. That was, as you described, very pleasant, different from the world atmosphere. I worked at summer camp that summer. Following that, as a student, that was wonderful beyond words, better than any summer camp ever, any place. I worked at Imperial High Schools as a teacher in the PE department, teaching ballroom dancing that junior year, and same thing. After college, I worked in, after a sabbatical from college, I worked in several different departments. I worked on gardening, I worked in mail shipping department, stuffing the envelopes with the literature people request. I worked in the watch line where we took the phone calls from people requesting literature. Oh, that was a wonderful place to work. Being able to converse with people from the outside, hearing their responsiveness to a telecast, some having heard it for the first time, and their joy, excitement. You know, Woody, kind of like that feeling you still carry even after many years. It's great to see that first love still alive in a young man like Woody. I say young man, I hope he doesn't mind my telling you, he's over 39 by a couple of years or so. And he's still got that youthful first love in him. And he's looking forward to being baptized. October 11. I hope you can be here for that, brethren. Those of you who can, wherever you're going for the feast, if you're going somewhere, if you can cut your travel through here, you know, get along, if you're flying, get a long layover in Birmingham. And, you know, rent you a car, drive on over here. Maybe we'll be able to even pick you up. Let us know when you're coming into Birmingham Airport. Maybe I can go over and grab you, get you driven over here, see Woody's baptism. And that'd be great. We had a lot of you for it. But let's see. And then those were the main. Oh, and then I worked in the auditorium for a while. Worked down in the administration for Roman Boric for a while. Aaron Dean asked me to come up and do some work with him on the fourth floor for a while. And I would be in and out of other departments, and and knew a lot of you there, and just we had a good relation. It was a wonderful, lovely place to work without that feeling permeating most workplaces of hardness that Tom mentioned. Now we did have a few tears, a few tears amidst us, even in the work. So there were some occasions, we're still waiting for Christ to return. The kingdom of God is not here yet, but still, it goes like Tom was saying. All right, in all of the other departments as Pasadena headquarters. And when I say simplicity, going back to Tom's topic for the day, he says, when I say simplicity, I'm not talking about stupidity, which is what many people think of when they hear the word simplicity used. My father used to call people with very low IQs simple, as in Simple Simon. The Greek word for simplicity, Tom says, in 2 Corinthians, as used in 2 Corinthians 11, verse 3, isn't referring to someone who is intellectually challenging, who isn't intellectually challenged or foolish, Tom says. According to the Art Gingrich, a Greek-English lexicon of the New Testament and other early Christian literature, pages 84 and 85, the word haplotes, Strong's 572. It doesn't have the pronunciation guide here. It's Haplots. Strong's 572 does indeed mean simplicity, Tom says, but in the sense of sincerity, uprightness, frankness, such as in obeying with a sincere heart. I lost my place, but perhaps that pause might be good for effect. So, such as obeying with a sincere heart, Ephesians 6, verse 5, Tom quotes. And the authors of the reference book add that it can be also used in the context of to speak simply or plainly, something God gifted upon his end-time apostle Herbert Armstrong, to speak crystal clear, plainly, simply. And he used the words crystal clear for us in the Spokesman's Club manual, encouraging us, brethren, as we learn the Spokesman's Club assignments, to learn to speak plainly and simply, making our points understandable to people such that they could say, yeah, that's crystal clear, instead of saying that's clear as mud. No, crystal clear, where people understand it plainly, simply. So, Tom goes on to say, contrary to the common belief in the world that the simplicity that is in Christ equals being overly naive, foolish, or stupid, real godlike simplicity actually refers to that purity and clarity of mind and heart, that comes from not being continually exposed to angry outbursts, foul language, dirty jokes. Clean it up out there, you people that are telling these anal jokes. Tom says ridicule of Bible truths and openly immoral behavior as other examples of what you see and have to put up with or have forced upon you sometimes in the work world. Tom goes on to say the idea of conducting one's life like a chaste virgin to Christ, 2 Corinthians 11, verse 22, has been continually ridiculed by American and British comedians for at least 50 years. No one seems to think that that kind of simplicity is practical or even beneficial for one's mental health and general well-being. As far as most people in society are concerned, the more worldly, the better. You know, and those of you, I'm going to break away from Tom's comments here in a minute. Those of you who think you need to plaster your face with even, well, I just used a little bit, you know, just a little lipstick on, just put on a little bit of this stuff to cover my skin. Go outside, breathe some fresh air, get a little sunshine on you. Do a few running laps. The time you take to plaster your face with makeup, just go run out, go run in place outside. The blood will rush to your face, your cheeks will rose up, you'll have a fresh, natural look. You don't need that. Most of us men hate it. If the men had the guts to speak up to you, some of you men who are married, Mr. Armstrong used to encourage us, tell your wives you find them lovely and beautiful without that makeup. Now, he wasn't saying lie to them. He was saying when you do find it that way, when you can see them when they're not wearing that, you know, which they're going to clean up before they go to bed at least, tell them, wow, you look beautiful, and mean it. Tell them from your heart, genuinely. Don't just say, hey, she looks better to yourself. I'm afraid to say anything now. She'll be mad at me because she knows I'm talking against her makeup if I tell her she looks good without it. Tell her. She needs to hear that. You know, a lot of us guys that feel that way, we don't tell the women. I think you look better without it. But they look in the mirror and they say, no, I don't. I need to make myself look like a rose bush or some artistic thing. I need to look like a clown. That's what it looks like to most of us gals. You put on any color that's not your natural color, you look like you're a clown. You look like you put on a robber's mask. You're going in to rob a bank. Well, maybe not that bad, but you look like you put on a mask. We don't know who you are anymore. We don't know what you really look like. It's distasteful. It's horrible. It's just the opposite of what you think. Oh, it's distasteful to go to work and look so plain. No, plain and simple in Christ. Thank you, Tom. This really relates. It's wonderful. It's pure. It's lovely. Well, I don't look like the rest of the world. They consider me odd. They consider everything about us odd. They consider the Sabbath odd. Yeah, they tolerate Jewish people. Jewish people will tolerate you because you're keeping the same day they keep, but they don't consider you a real Jew. We don't consider us a real Jewish person, unless maybe you are, unless you're going to their temples and doing the crazy cultural rites and things they do, you know, and the candle lighting, all that stuff. Fascinating to go to a Messianic Jewish congregation one time, you know, do all that candle lighting, drink the wine before the meal, it's, you know, la-di-da stuff. But the simplicity in Christ is not that, you know, for us now. You can do that, nothing wrong with that. Go drink, you know, do that stuff, the candles and all that stuff. But some of the other things that's not the simple purity in Christ, it's phony, it's a mask, it's yuck. I'm telling you as a man outside the religion, I'm telling you a lot of men don't have the guts to tell you. The truth is most of us find you more lovely without that colored mucky yuck mud on. And some of the women admit, they tell you, why do we wear this makeup? Read what they say. Well, I want to be like the rest of the world. That's number one. That's a strike against you in the Bible. Number two, it gives me a feeling of power. Oh, you don't want to be humble? Like Jesus Christ says, be like a little child and have humility to enter the kingdom of God? No, I want to have power like the other women. And this is a woman's thing. Oh, excuse me. Women's thing is against men? Didn't God make the woman from the man's rib to be a help for him? Didn't he tell the man he better, if he marries a woman, he better adore and cherish and love her, provide for her? And doesn't he call the woman your mate? I mean, you know, men, I mean, she's, and she's your equal, even though you're the head. You gotta, when you make decisions, you gotta make your decisions with consideration in mind for her. And that consideration should extend to the fact and the point that she is made by God as a weaker vessel than you. But no, women want to put power paint on their face, so they seem as powerful as a man. And then man's not going to open the door for you. You want to be a power plate? Open your own door. I mean, that's what they tell you even. Women have chewed men out for opening the door for them. I mean, the director of publishing department, Mr. Wright, gave a sermon one day where he told about this woman chewing him out. And he said, why are you doing that? You know, I'm as capable of opening that door as you are. Mr. Wright told the woman something to the effect, I don't know if I can get this quite right, Mr. Wright, but it was so funny the way he told it. He said, ma'am, he says, my parents taught me to respect the women as the weaker sex and to do things like this and to show them honor and respect. Open the door for them. I was just following my parents' instruction to show you some honor. And as she did, she still looked at him sternly or whatever. He said, but apparently you don't have any. And whatever word he used, honor, ladylikeness, or whatever. And she was still there huffing and puffing against him after he explained, I was trying to show you honor and honor you as a lady. Oh, yeah, that's what he said. Something like that. And then he said, as she still stood there in her huffing, puffing, he said, but I can see you're not one. He was going to honor her as a lady, and she didn't apologize or say, oh, well, thank you, or anything like that. So then he had to say, I was going to honor you as a lady, but I can see that you're not one. You're not a lady. Good going, Mr. Wright. That was an excellent response to that, to that kind of dog-you attitude from a woman who was not acting womanly, not acting ladylike, not acting with the feminine charm that God just put into a woman. You don't want to paint that up. You don't want to hide it. You don't want to mask it. You actually hide your beauty. Let it come from inside you. Just smile. Everybody knows it's not really you when they're looking at all this paint. That's not, if somebody tells you you look lovely while you got that paint on, that's not a compliment to you. That's supposedly a compliment to the manufacturer of that colored mud. The real you, what you want to hear somebody say is you look lovely. Even about your dress, they don't want to hear that that's a beautiful tie. They want to hear you say, hey, you look great with that tie on. It compliments you well, something like that, Or it doesn't. Tell them, if it's a friend, tell them the truth. Get rid of that awful-looking spotted yuck tie you're wearing there, fella. All right, Tom goes on. Let's finish this. We have a little bit of time to finish this yet. Tom goes on to say, and there is let's see. On the other hand, let's see. What did I do? I got out of my place here. So, contrary to the common belief that in the world the simplicity that's in Christ equals being overly naive, foolish, or stupid, real godlike simplicity actually refers to that purity and clarity of mind and heart that comes from not being continually exposed to angry outbursts, foul language, dirty jokes, ridicule of Bible truths, and openly immoral behavior. The idea of conducting one's life like a chaste virgin to Christ, 2 Corinthians 11:2, has been continually ridiculed by American and British comedians for at least 50 years, Tom says. No one seems to think that kind of simplicity is practical or even beneficial for one's mental health and general well-being. As far as most people in society are concerned, the more worldly, the better. Not so. We're told, come out of this world. Tom goes on and says, on the other hand, God, of course, doesn't want us to be overly naive, excessively trusting, or foolish. Through the Apostle Paul, God admonishes all of us, my brothers, don't be children, but use your intelligence. Let me pause for a moment. There's a time to be children in a certain way. But in this context, this verse is saying, don't be children, but, like foolish children, but use your intelligence. By all means, be innocent as babes, where your minds are concerned, but where your minds are concerned, be full-grown men. 1 Corinthians 14, verse 20, Phillips' translation with Tom emphasizing the words, be full-grown men. Tom goes on with just two more short paragraphs. And there is also the well-known teaching by Jesus. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be you therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Matthew 10, verse 16. And then the last paragraph, Tom says, in the world tomorrow, everyone on the earth will be taught to be simple. Share that with your friend there, Woody. Simple. Everybody will be taught to be simple. But simple in the positive, Tom says. Clean, and in the positive, clean and pure sense. And he quotes 1 Corinthians 14:20. When it comes to evil, be like babies. When it comes to evil, be like babies. Now, some people today plaster makeup on a little kid. I've very rarely seen it painted onto a baby. Oh boy, give somebody the idea for that now. Little babies don't paint their face. They just goo goo gaga, hello, yay, ha ha. Be like 1 Corinthians 14:20. When it comes to evil, be like babies. And vanity is evil. So painting the face is evil. God's apostle and said it, made it a doctrine. God the Father honors that doctrine. No woman, no one painting their face with makeup is going to rise to meet Christ in the air. Oh, I heard Mr. Armstrong say that. He didn't say that. I'm going to play the tape for you. You'll hear it in his own voice. You'll hear it with your own ears, if you are around to listen after I've stomped all over your makeup pad and mirror, or your toes. All right, Tom quoted that last verse from God's Word to the Nation's Society translation. 1 Corinthians 14:20. When it comes to evil, be like little babies. All right, that was Tom's topic for today. We have a few minutes left. Would you like to hear one of the Internet Ambassador Club spokesman's reply? Where you get to stand up and comment after the topics master leads a topic. You would? You wouldn't? Well, we're almost finished. You can go somewhere else. All right, those of you who would like to hear it, I'm going to let you hear the response from another man who worked in the same type of job that Tom worked in for 25 years. I'm not going to mention his name until I get his permission, but we'll just go with his initials. H.H. worked in the English section of letter answering. Almost the same amount of time as Tom worked in actually a little bit less time, because H.H. worked after college on the outside for a while, and then he prayed, fasted, and said, God, I got all this ambassador college education. I should be using it in the work, I think, and I'm going to fast and ask you if I should, if you want me, you willing, open a door for me. And after his fast, a door opened up in the letter answering department, the English department, letter answering, and he worked there. And so his counterpart, Tom, worked in letter answering in the Spanish department. They both worked under Mr. Richard Rice. And so H.H. is answering Tom's topic here. And H.H. also answered people's letters. And sometimes H.H. will call Tom to task, sometimes rightly, sometimes not so. We'll see. I get to play the overall evaluator. Let's read this together. Dear all, good points, Tom. You usually acknowledge your topics, Master Tom. Now, for a change of pace, HH is saying, I thought I would bring up a topic for discussion that is seldom addressed. Now, I don't know if he's going to reply to the same topic or he's taking liberty, which usually only the topics master is supposed to do to be able to change the topic. Let's see what he does with this. But he's taking the opportunity to say this. Since we were all affected to one degree or another by Ambassador College, all of us on this Internet Ambassador Club, we're all Ambassador College alumni. And it's an Ambassador Club. That's the Spokesman's Club at Ambassador College was called Ambassador Club. And all these members are, Ambassador alumni. Since we were all affected to one degree or another by Ambassador College, HH is asking, what did you understand to be the purpose for AC? I got a feeling I should read this ahead of time before I read it out loud. I'll read a little bit more. Why did you choose to attend Ambassador College? And what do you think about how it developed during its last 30 years? Let me think about that for a second, because, okay. Just hang on a second if you don't mind, brethren. It's a very change of subject. And he says, okay, let's see your responses. Okay, I'm glad I didn't give you the name, because this responder actually took the license to change the topic to another question. And it is worded in such a way as to, I've been noticing this. I hope some of you people will get back on track. It's showing a tendency toward movement from God's apostle. Man, am I sad to hear that, see that. And I'm just going to say it, even though I gave your initials. Some of you need to fast and pray and ask God to correct you. When I fast, I ask God to correct me. I ask him to do it with love and mercy, and thankfully he does both. He corrects me, and he does it with love and mercy. Now, sometimes even with love and mercy, it's still a little bit painful. But, with that pain, growth, there's pain with growth. There just is. That's the way it works. All right, brethren, I wish I'd punched up another hymn so we could close out with a hymn. I could do just a spot moment of playing something from a telecast that maybe I've played recently. I do have one up here. Let's do a potluck for 3 or 4 minutes and just put something up from Mr. Armstrong and see if it's something we might want to comment. I'll do that in lieu of a hymn. I could sign off early, I know, but I have this here. I have Mr. Armstrong right at the beginning. It might be kind of awkward, though, except, I tell you what, let me turn it down. I'm going to start that, and I am going to roll it to a place where we can, this is just a test. At some point, I want to start taking excerpts from Mr. Armstrong's telecast that I can play where he's making a certain boom point that I could even play during a news program. But I want to do this. Mr. I'm going to pause you for just a second. I'm just going to play a few minutes because after reading where I see one of our old brothers tending to start to take a position against the truths God taught us through his end-time apostle, I'm thinking about it. There was a time when things were off track at the college, and that's where his subject went. So I don't want to overjudge it, but it's wonderful to hear Mr. Armstrong. We got a lot of Mr. Armstrong's tapes in our archive. Maybe this will whet somebody's appetite. Well, let me go. If you never heard Mr. Armstrong before, I do have some new people that are connecting with me from in the local area, and they know how to connect with me here, who may not have heard Mr. Armstrong at all before. You're going to hear, I'm just going to pop in for an excerpt, just for a couple minutes, I'm not sure what he's going to say, but I'm not ever worried about what Mr. Armstrong says. Let's just cut in on him for a moment. Mr. Armstrong, if you don't mind, we're just going to take you for a couple of minutes here, sir.
Made the wrong decision, and men have been making the same decision ever since. Now, I was speaking to the president of Kenya, down in Nairobi, President Kenyatta. He had started a self-help hospital. We were discussing the thing of what do you do for someone that needs help? How do you help people? Do you help people just by supplying their need where they don't have anything to do and you just do it for them? If people are hungry, you just feed them and keep on feeding them and do it all for them? No. I said, I've always believed in the pump priming system. That is, you pour a little water into the old cistern and that sort of primes it, and then you can pump, and then the whole water of the whole cistern comes up finally. Well, he said that was his idea exactly, and then told me that he had started a self-help hospital for people to give them a chance to help themselves. And I went out of town with him some distance, about 30 miles. And he took me through the hospital that he had, a self-help hospital. We worked out a plan that we've put through since in Kenya of self-help education because his people needed education.
All right, friends, I'm going to stop right there. And I just realized I was looking at the wrong clock. We actually went overtime by 15 minutes. Thanks for staying with me. I need to sign on out. But I just comment on that was kind of a good place, I think, we went in there on your program, Mr. Armstrong. The pump priming thing, there's a good lesson, a good point. And the fact that God opened up doors for Mr. Armstrong to make friendships and see various leaders around the world, something for a man not in government, going as an ambassador without portfolio. Obviously, a door God opened up. And those of you who even buy airplanes that look just like the one Mr. Armstrong had, same model, everything, you don't get these doors open unless God's doing that for you. I think some people are finding that out. Brethren, we got to go. I'm over time, and I stepped on enough toes this morning to have a lot of rotten eggs and tomatoes thrown at me. So let me get our closing theme up here, and we'll sign off till next time. Tomorrow night on World Watch TV, we'll do a short program till I have the inspection. Next Friday night for Bible study on Sabbath.tv, the Sabbath Service channel, Facebook Live, and then we've got the archive both on the Sabbath Service page video and on the cogtv.org archive video. You can find plenty of our programs, Bible study last night, other programs with Mr. Armstrong in them. So let me say thanks for joining us, and we'll sign it on out of here with our going out of here theme. Happy Sabbath, everybody. If I was covering myself up, thanks for joining us. Happy Sabbath, everybody.